A friend of mine recently opened his mail and found something he never expected: a $300 speeding ticket. The violation wasn't extreme. He wasn't racing or driving aggressively. He was going just 6 miles per hour over the limit on a road he's driven the same way for years. Same route, same schedule, same habits. What shocked him wasn't just the fine, it was the notice explaining that this single ticket pushed him much closer to a license suspension than he ever thought possible. That moment is unsettling for a simple reason. His driving didn't change, the rules did. Like most drivers, he assumed that going a few miles per hour over the limit lived in a gray area. It was something people barely thought about, often resulting in a warning or a modest fine at most. In 2026, that assumption can become expensive. Small mistakes that once felt harmless can now lead to higher fines, increased insurance costs, and real risk to your driving privileges after just one or two routine violations. When I looked into why his penalty was so severe, it became clear this wasn't an unlucky one-off. It was a signal of something bigger. While a lot of online content focuses on dramatic claims about new driving laws that don't actually exist, genuine changes are quietly taking effect at the state level. These updates may sound minor when you read them, but together they change how quickly consequences add up. In several states, just two ordinary violations over a couple of years can now be enough to trigger a suspension, even without reckless behavior or serious offenses. That's what prompted me to dig deeper. Instead of relying on headlines, I reviewed official state DMV updates, read the actual legislation, and spoke with traffic attorneys who are already seeing drivers caught off guard. The same message kept coming up. People aren't suddenly becoming worse drivers. They're getting penalized because enforcement systems shifted quietly, and most drivers never adjusted their habits. Before getting into the details, there's one thing worth addressing. The biggest risk right now isn't only stricter enforcement, it's confusion. When exaggerated or false claims spread quickly, accurate information gets ignored. Drivers who can't tell the difference between online hype and real policy changes are often the ones who end up paying for it. My name is Sophia. I spend a lot of time separating verified rule changes from internet panic because in areas like transportation and insurance, misinformation can be costly. I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't legal advice. Everything I'm sharing here is based on official DMV sources, state rules, and conversations with professionals who work with these cases every day. Let's clear up some of the noise first. You've probably seen videos claiming that starting in 2026, the federal government will automatically fine drivers thousands of dollars for brief insurance lapses, detect phone use remotely, or issue instant penalties through the road itself. Those claims are inaccurate. Traffic enforcement in the US is managed by states, not through sweeping federal systems, and there are no nationwide programs operating the way those videos describe. The problem is what happens next. Once people realize the viral claims are exaggerated, they tend to dismiss everything else as fake too. That's when the real changes slip by unnoticed. While attention is focused on things that aren't happening, states are quietly adjusting point systems, enforcement standards, and how long violations remain on your record. These adjustments don't feel dramatic in the moment, but they compound over time. Nowhere is this clearer than in New York. A traffic attorney there recently described a case where a driver lost her license after just 2 tickets. One was a modest speeding violation while taking her kids to school. The other involved holding a phone at a red light a couple of months later. That was enough to suspend her license for 2 months. For her, that meant missed work and lost income. Starting in 2026, New York is implementing one of its most significant updates to the driver point system in years. Previously, suspension occurred at 11 points within an 18-month period. Under the new framework, suspension begins at 10 points over a 24-month window. That extra time matters because points now stay active longer. At the same time, point values for several common violations have increased. Some actions that once carried fewer points now carry more, and others that didn't affect your total at all are now included. Here's how that changes the math. A small speeding ticket that used to add 3 points may now add 4. A phone-related violation that once added 5 may now add 6. 2 everyday mistakes, spaced out over months, can now add up to a suspension threshold. Drivers often don't realize how close they are until the notice arrives. It doesn't stop there. Minor issues that people rarely worry about, like a broken tail light or an improper turn, now contribute points in some situations. Each incident on its own feels manageable. Together, over time, they can quietly put a driver over the limit. Insurance companies don't wait for a suspension to react. Insurers monitor point totals continuously, and rate increases often start well before the state steps in. Agents report that drivers with mid-range point totals are already seeing significant premium hikes, even while they're still legally allowed to drive. The financial impact begins long before a license is taken away. State officials often explain these changes as safety measures, and in many cases that's true. The intent is to reduce repeated violations and improve road safety. The challenge is that the system doesn't always distinguish between consistently dangerous behavior and occasional routine mistakes. The math treats them the same. One option that still provides relief in some states, including New York, is an approved defensive driving course. These programs can reduce points on your record and create a buffer against future violations. Taking one proactively, rather than waiting until you're forced to, can make a meaningful difference under tighter rules. If you're thinking this only applies to one state, it's worth reconsidering. New York is simply a clear example of a broader direction. Across the country, states are refining enforcement, expanding what counts as a violation, and increasing the time frame in which points matter. These changes don't arrive with major announcements. They arrive quietly through updated tables and enforcement guidance. California is another good illustration. Despite online claims of sweeping new penalties, most 2026 updates there are targeted. School zone speed limits are gradually being reduced in certain areas with stricter monitoring where proper signage exists. Requirements for e-bikes have been updated following safety incidents. Move-over laws now protect more roadside situations. These are specific, situational changes, not blanket punishments for everyday drivers. At the same time, distracted driving enforcement is becoming more consistent nationwide. In many states, hands-free rules are now primary enforcement, meaning phone use alone can justify a stop. Automated enforcement, like speed and red light cameras, is also expanding. These systems don't rely on warnings or discretion. They simply record violations and let the process continue. This isn't about portraying these updates as unfair or unreasonable. Many are rooted in legitimate safety goals. What's changed is the margin for error. Behaviors that once felt inconsequential can now add up more quickly, with fewer opportunities to recover. The practical takeaway is simple. Check your state DMV's official updates for 2026. Know how points are calculated where you live. If you already have points on your record, understand what buffer you have left. If defensive driving courses are available, consider them before you're forced to. Pay closer attention in school zones and treat hands-free laws as actively enforced, not optional. Small adjustments can make a real difference. This isn't about fear or perfection. It's about recognizing that enforcement systems have evolved. Driving the same way you did years ago can now lead to different outcomes, even if your intentions haven't changed. Nothing here is happening all at once, which is why so many people miss it. There's no single start date or nationwide announcement. The changes are gradual, and that's what makes them easy to overlook. If there's one thing to remember, it's this. Don't rely on viral content to understand what's changing. Go directly to official sources, verify what applies in your state. Awareness gives you back control. My friend adjusted his habits not because he panicked, but because he understood the updated system. That $300 ticket wasn't random, it was a signal that the environment had changed. Driving laws aren't suddenly extreme everywhere, and they aren't changing in the dramatic way social media often claims. But enforcement is tightening, technology is more consistent, and penalties can stack faster than before. The best response isn't anxiety, it's staying informed, making small habit changes, and understanding the rules as they exist now. That's how you stay prepared in 2026, calm, informed, and ahead of the curve.